What's going on, everybody? It's Tuesday. Welcome to the Hustle Pod, and that means it's time to break down a little weekday CFB action with my good buddy, Adam Trigger. There he is right there. I am Bryan Power. It is our time, Trigg, to break down the cornucopia that is Conference USA, who's had a stranglehold on these weekday games. Little Sun Belt, the American as well. How you doing here today, man? How's the weekend going? How'd Monday treat you?
I'm great, Bryan. I had an okay weekend, scratched out a profit in NFL last week, actually largely thanks to the Conference USA games. I started my week 2-0 with Middle Tennessee State and Liberty, which I think we talked about one of them on the show last week. Mm-hmm. And I sort of got to the finish line with a little bit of football profit last week, really thanks to that strong start. So week was good. Quiet day for me yesterday. Didn't have really any action other than a KBO play early. Bryan, we have finally reached the end of the KBO regular season. It only took like 3.5 weeks to make up all the makeup games. It's the middle of October. They're just starting the playoffs. My days of being up watching games at 5 a.m. at least are numbered for the time being. I might start sleeping till like 6 or 7. I don't know. But other than that, can't complain. Everything's good.
Sounds great. I, on the other end, came off a 3-0 Monday. The weekend was kind of middling, but Monday was great. We finally had a 2-0 sweep in the MLB playoffs, and then Monday Night Football was kind as well, had the under in that game. And the Chargers, who were in a tease for me, so I got the first leg in, go Atlanta on Sunday. But that's the pros. Let's talk about college, Trigg. First game up for Tuesday is Middle Tennessee and Liberty. Liberty, one of 3 group of 5 teams still without a loss. I know you have thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Liberty kind of checks all the boxes here for me, Bryan. The only reason I haven't really made this a client bet yet is I thought the number was probably where it should be. But, it looks like I still think at maybe at 14, I might have considered this. I feel like I missed my chance, right? Like this moved a little bit. Now you're looking at 15s. I would have wanted to be on the other side of 14. But if you need to bet this game, I wouldn't be taking the points here. Well, I'll just sort of start with that because I really do think that this is a great matchup for Liberty. So listen, Middle Tennessee State, these were the 2 teams I cashed with last week. So I do like both of them. I think both have redeeming qualities, specifically Middle Tennessee State. I think they've played a really difficult schedule that's maybe, doesn't fully show up in the numbers. Like some of their numbers are probably worse off than they should be because they had games against the likes of Missouri, Alabama, tough games inside the conference. So there's something to be said for that. But when I look at this matchup, I really think that Liberty's sort of big play, this run pass option that they run with Salter and their ability to hit the explosive play is going to be the difference in the game here. So, there's a good matchup here for Liberty on the defensive side in the respect that Middle Tennessee doesn't run the ball particularly well. But I think where Liberty's really going to kind of open this game up is just their ability to throw downfield and hit the big play against Middle Tennessee's atrocious pass defense. Middle Tennessee is not good at defending the pass. And what better to expose that than a Liberty team that can run the ball, but that has a guy in Caden Salter at quarterback that runs. He's like an RPO type quarterback that's probably a better passer than runner, right? I mean, you look he's the most accurate. He's got the highest passer rating in Conference USA. He's a very good passer, 14 touchdowns against 2 interceptions throwing this year. He's got another 6 rushing. He's accounted for 2 or more touchdowns in every game. And I just have a feeling that he is going to light up this Middle Tennessee defense. I mean, they commit to the run a little bit, and there's going to be home run plays all over the field here, in my opinion, for Liberty. So while that number does feel big, and I do think there are some redeeming qualities with the Blue Raiders, which I called Red Raiders on our show last week, and I found that out when I reposted the clip. The Blue Raiders of Middle Tennessee State, I think they're in trouble, Bryan, against Liberty's ability to sort of hit the home run play here. And for that reason, I could only lay the points with the Flames.
All right, Trigg. It's not a client play, but he does lean Liberty, Liberty, Liberty. Other two games tonight here in action. We got Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State was a team that on last week's show, Trigg, we both wanted to fade. You obviously took Liberty. I said take the under. Both of those bets worked out. A lot of injury concerns on the offensive side of the ball for Rich Rod going into this game. I wouldn't want to lay it with Western Kentucky on the road, though, not more than a score, even though that's the way the market's moving. And then the other game is Southern Miss, South Alabama, two disappointing teams here in the Sun Belt. That number is going up, man. South Alabama's taking money. I'd be a little, again, leery about laying the points. I know you're not a totals guy. I would probably lean under on both of those games, though. Southern Miss has not covered in, I believe, 5 in a row. Their offense stinks.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like those two games, like those are so. Jacksonville State's been a team I've wanted to fade, but again, I'm kind of with you there. I don't know if I could come out and just lay sort of 8 or 7 because you have to sometimes in sports betting you got to be willing to admit where you were wrong or where you were incorrect or maybe you didn't see something clearly. And I have to admit, yes, I did get a win last week, finally going against Jacksonville State, but it took me 4 tries. So I'm not going to sit here and say I've had Jacksonville State pegged by any means. Because clearly I underrated this team when I lost, betting against them with UTEP, Middle Tennessee State. There was another week. I thankfully was not on that Sam Houston debacle. But, I kind of the way I'm looking at it is I took my money last week, got my win with Liberty, and I don't really have an appetite to go against Jacksonville State right now as a dog anytime soon. So I may even lead toward the points there. In the other game, South Alabama, a team I was way high on coming into the season. But as you said, I don't know. I don't know if I could lay. We're getting up to 19 now, Brian. It looks like I'm seeing 19s on the board here. Man, I in hindsight, I would have liked to have 17 at this point with South Alabama. I do think they could really lay it to Southern Miss here, but I just don't know if I could lay close to 20. It seems like an awfully big number.
Yeah, and again, I just don't expect a lot of points there. Moving to Wednesday, what a couple of beauties we've got here. Over under 6.5 people that watch these two games besides you and I. Sam Houston, winless Sam Houston, still in their first year as an FBS program, is laying 5 to FIU. If I was on FIU and had any pride, I would probably want to fight the lines makers for making me a 5-point underdog to Sam Houston. I respect the odds makers personally. I know you do as well. But my goodness, getting 5 against winless Sam Houston, what does that say about the current state of FIU football? And then the other game I'm going to tackle right now, the I-10 rivalry, Trigg, Las Cruces and El Paso, New Mexico State and UTEP. New Mexico State is up to -3 here on the road. And that is uncharted territory for them. I believe this is the first time in 5 years they have been asked to lay a field goal or more away from Las Cruces. I know they went bowling last year. I know they're 4-3 off a couple wins for Jerry Kill. Both those wins were at home. And you want to talk about coaching. Dana Dibble, I know everybody wants to fire this guy into the sun. One of the hottest seats in America, no doubt about it. But UTEP showed a pulse last week against the aforementioned FIU Panthers. And they did so with, what was it, their 4th string quarterback? They were down to, everybody wrote them off. There was a huge line move against them. This kid, Cade McConnell, comes in and threw for 175 yards in the first quarter on 5 completions. Previous to that, the UTEP offense had been averaging just 188 yards passing per game. I don't know if we're going to see that kind of explosiveness from the Miners this week. But, man, I think the value here is on UTEP, a team that was expected to contend in Conference USA coming into the year. But it's been a disappointing start, obviously. But I think last week was a step in the right direction. UTEP has had the series edge. Now, these teams are just conference rivals again starting this year. New Mexico State joining Conference USA. But they play most seasons. And going back to 2009, UTEP has the edge, 10-3 straight up, 7-4-2 against the number. 20-13 winners last year here in El Paso. So back-to-back years, they get to host New Mexico State. And they were 17-point favorites in this game last year. So now they're a dog. Is UTEP really regressed that much over 365 days? I don't think so. It's not a client play yet, Trigg, but I would look to take the points with the much maligned Dana Dibble And UTEP Miners.
I'm with you there, Brian. UTEP's a team I've kind of been on for the last couple of years. I actually did well with them last year. I feel like I picked my spots good with UTEP last year. I know a big 5% win for me against Boise State, where they won outright, comes to mind as like a 16-point dog. I was very high on UTEP coming into this season. Believe I'm 0-2 backing them so far this year. I know I lost in the opener against Jacksonville State, and then I tried to take a shot against Louisiana Tech. They played terrible, and I guess I'm just going to kind of like support your point. Like, maybe Gavin Hardison just wasn't that good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe he just wasn't that good of a quarterback. I feel like he was constantly like, just like the weak link there in terms of there was always excuses made, turned the ball over a ton. He did have like a little stretch where he was good. So who knows? Maybe they found a quarterback now, and maybe like UTEP will start to live up to expectations, because they certainly looked good last week. And I fully agree with your breakdown here. I think there's definitely value with the Miners. Seems like even with the result last week, that the odds makers still giving, in the betting market, giving this team zero respect. And maybe you still have another opportunity to buy low on UTEP. So I'm with you here, Brian.
Yeah, something else we might agree on as we turn to Thursday, a tough spot for James Madison. As you know, Trigg, James Madison was the 4th president of the United States of America. And that is appropriate because their front four, might be the best in America. I'm not, that's probably a lie, but I have bet against James Madison twice this year. And every offensive play against this James Madison defense results in one of three things: a tackle for loss, the quarterback getting sacked, or the ball being knocked down. It's unbelievable. This front four, you can't get anything past them. But they're off a big revenge win last week, and they head to Huntington, West Virginia, a place where I saw Randy Moss set the NCAA touchdown record a quarter century ago. My God, how old am I now? But that's a tough spot for James Madison. Rice and Tulsa are also in action Thursday. Good luck if anyone wants to play that. And then Friday is SMU laying a big number against Temple. I think SMU has a pretty clear path to the conference title game in the AAC. If there's nothing you would like to touch on any of those Thursday or Friday games, Trigg, we can turn it over to our weekly NFL Survivor chat.
I'll make one comment about the Thursday game, the James Madison Marshall game, before we go to NFL. And that's, like, thankfully, if you've been willing to not take bad numbers, like, hopefully, like, these shows, we come on here, preach, like, don't take bad numbers, don't take bad numbers. You've probably saved a good amount of money, like, not betting against James Madison. I've got to be honest. There's probably been 3 times this season where I wanted to bet against James Madison. I thought it was the right play. The line moved in like a ton and early in the week. And, the Utah State game comes to mind. I think even last week's, moved quite a bit as well. And I said, okay, well, I missed sort of the opportunity there, and it saved me from a loss. So I kind of lean Marshall here. Just like, I do think teams are going to at least cover against James Madison at some point. I haven't locked this in, but I'm certainly looking that way. I think right now we're still sitting at about 3.5, which is playable here. I mean, like, I think that the sort of high watermark may have been 4, and maybe only like a couple places. So it's on my radar. I haven't locked it in yet because, again, if you've bet any of those, you've come up with a losing ticket. So I think that's important to point out as well. But I do think, like, fading James Madison from here on out, it has to be profitable, right, Brian? Like, they've been an absolute machine against the number as well.
Yes, and this is a road game again too. So, and that was a big win last week against Georgia Southern, who handed them their first loss last year. So they put a lot into that. Yeah, I think it's a spot where I too may be looking to fade the Dukes. All right, NFL. Obviously a lot of the good teams have been used. I know you have a lot to say on Survivor. You're still doing well in the contest. All I'm going to add to this is, if you've used a lot of good teams and we always talk about, like, looking for somebody kind of off the radar, I think Seattle would be the best option this week against Arizona.
So, Brian, I agree with you that Seattle's a solid option. The problem with Seattle, it's not really a problem. So here's I'm doing well in Circa Survivor so far this year. And I'll get to this Seahawks game in a second, but I've got 5 entries left in the Circa contest. So pretty good. Wow. We're down to like 1,700 and change. CT and I have 3 together, and then I have two of mine that I've partnered up with other people. So we've got 5 going. And I think that the key here this week, and I'll tie this into the Seattle-Arizona game. This is how I kind of look at using entries. Like this week, Seattle looks like the overwhelming correct pick. They're at home. They're at home against a bad Cardinals team. They're coming off a loss. It's a game they should win. The problem is, like, I don't make Seattle in this spot like a pick. Like, so let's say I have 5 entries left. Would I use 4 or 5 on Seattle here? Certainly not, because I don't have the Seahawks rated at that high as a team. The Cardinals could. I mean, we've already seen the Cardinals sort of step up and beat the Cowboys. Granted, the Cowboys had some injuries. Arguably, they should have beat the Commanders in week 1. At least they could have. They led for long stretches of that game. And so, like, my concern here is I have 2 concerns with the Seahawks. One, that the Cardinals are going to kind of step up and nip someone at some point soon. Like, they almost feel due to do so. And 2, that the way Survivor has worked out for the people that are still in the competition, the Seahawks is going to be the obvious choice this week. So you have to weigh all of these things in when you're talking about Survivor, because you got to think about, like, yes, the Bills are an option, but not many people have the Bills left, right? Because if you still had the Bills left, you were probably using them as a 15-point favorite last week against the Giants. And so, you know, the Bills at -8.5. Now, I'm not saying I like the Bills, which going on the road to New England, but what you do know about the Bills is your pick equity is going to be very high, because there aren't many people left in Survivor competitions that still have the Bills available. And I think the same can be said about San Francisco. Now, I'm not saying I like the 49ers on the road at Minnesota, but what you know is that touchdown favorite right there in the 49ers, you're going to have good pick equity there, because a lot of people have already used the 49ers in Survivor pools. So I think those are like the things that you have to really consider. Now, again, let's go back to the Seahawks. I don't think by any means it makes it a bad pick. I think the Seahawks are a very viable option at home. It's a spot like it feels like they should win. So if you're down to 1 pick in Survivor, like, this might be the way that you have to go. But if you've got a couple, this isn't a team that I'm willing to, like, if I've got 5 picks left, I don't want 4, or maybe I don't even want 3 of them invested in the Seahawks, because I just don't think the Seahawks are a strong enough team. Like, it's not like 3 weeks ago, Chiefs at home against the Bears, they're a 14-point favorite. CT and I put every pick on them. We just didn't see a way that the Chiefs would lose that game. It's not that kind of game. I think another option, especially if you're in Circa and you've got multiple entries, I really think you could consider the Saints on Thursday night. I bet this when it was a pick. Saints are up to -3. I really don't. I think Trevor Lawrence might not play. I feel like it makes sense where the Jaguars are at, maybe to if he's not really fully ready to go. I think it makes sense for them to not play him here. They just had to travel to London, won both games back-to-back in London. They come home, they get a win. The Jaguars are in great shape right now. There's absolutely no reason for them to rush Lawrence out here on a short week if he's got a bum knee and risk hurting him. They're set up so well right now, Brian. Like, and if he gets ruled out, the Saints are probably going to be a bigger favorite. The Saints coming off of a loss to the Texans, it feels like a good spot for New Orleans at home. And the nice part about that is you know the outcome before you have to lock the other Survivor picks in. So maybe this is the spot where you take a chance with like a short home favorite in the Saints and see if you can get an entry or 2 home before the weekend even starts. And it's like it will totally set up your strategy. If the Saints win here, you know you've got a win in your pocket. Then it makes Sunday a little bit easier. So that's certainly, I think the Saints should be like one of the top couple options in Survivor this week. But a lot of people sort of throw those Thursday games out too quickly, or in the other thing, Brian, they use the Thursday games just because it's a big favorite. This is a spot I would use the Thursday game. I really think the Saints win this one.
Yeah, I like the strategy too. And here's the other thing: if you don't like Seattle and you've already used San Francisco, Kansas City, and Buffalo, it's tricky because every other game, Saints included, has a spread of 3 or less. So it's going to be a tricky one. That's Trigg. He likes to using the Saints there on Thursday. Not a bad look. We're wrapping it up here on the Hustle Pod for Tuesday. Check us out every day here on Wager Talk TV. Give us a thumbs up, smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the Wager Talk YouTube channel if you're already not. I can't believe any of you would not be already subscribed. And those 7-day passes are out there, site-wide. Code set the number 7 pass. It works for Trigg, works for me. Check out all the tremendous content we've got going. I know Trigg's done some previews for college and NFL. So have I this week. He's Adam Trigger.
Oh yeah,
Brian Power.
Plug our Kent State preview real quick, Brian. Gotta tell him.
And yes. Well, I can't believe I forgot that. Our college basketball, I joined Trigg. We talked about our trip to Kent State last year. We previewed Kent State's outlook for 2023, 2024. That's up on the Wager Talk YouTube page as well. Again, make sure you're subscribed, and you would have already known that it was up there. So he's Adam Trigger. I'm Brian Power. Let's all cash some tickets, everybody. Have a great week.